ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
All right, before I start the show today, all you hockey guys, you got 2 Game 7s, one tonight and one tomorrow, all right? There's no NBA playoffs. There's no football distraction. There's no Belmont. You know, it's New York, it's Chicago, it's Anaheim, major markets, Game 7s. You keep telling me how everybody loves hockey, and I don't get it. I want to see big, fat numbers there, all right? All right? The only distraction all weekend for hockey fans is a movie. There's one semi-big movie opening. It's called San Andreas. Of course, I've seen it 13 times. I liked it better when it was Armageddon, The Day After, The Rapture, Goodbye World, This Is the End, Independence Day, all the Terminator movies, Escape from New York and L.A., The Darkest Hour, World War Z. So if you don't see that movie, it'll be out in like 6 months again. Just have a different title. All right, hockey nerd, you better bring it. I want to see big ratings. You have no distractions. You're just sitting out there with your ice and your skates and all those handsome players. Go get a big fat number. All right, so everybody, all right, you know the story. Guys don't communicate well. I've always said this about wars. We're great getting into them. We can never get out of them. We're really good with testosterone. Let's go to war. Oh, yeah, we should probably communicate here and have a plan to get out. We're lousy at that. I mean, guys won't communicate with their wives, but they'll dial 1-900 and talk to somebody they've never met and pay her $18 a minute. You know, you could just give the whip to your wife instead of the dominatrix there. You know, you'd have that kind of relationship. I don't know. But Tom Thibodeau's a great coach, right? He just got released by the Chicago Bulls, right? Well, yeah, of course. He didn't talk to his general manager for 4 months. If you broaden this story out, once again, it's the rise and fall of most American men. Communication. Failure to adapt. That's why Rex Ryan got fired in New York. Bobby Knight wanted a job, couldn't get one at the end. Gar Forman, this is about 25 seconds. He's the GM. Now, I'm going to play the total bite, but then do something I think is pretty interesting. Play the total bite, the GM who fired him.
It is our strong belief that there needs to be a culture of communication that builds a trust throughout this organization. And from the players to the coaches to the management and to the front office, a culture where everybody is pulling in the same direction. When that culture is sacrificed, it becomes extremely difficult to evolve and to grow. And today's decision was about giving this team an opportunity to grow into the future.
All right, that's the guy who fired Tibbs. Did you notice 4 or 5 key words there?
Communication, trust, culture, evolve, grow.
Yeah. Communicate poorly, failure to adapt. Nothing kills a career faster. It's what we don't do. Women go to the bathroom to talk. We go into a bathroom, guys never talk. Women create races, race for the cure. They talk about their health with one another. Breast cancer, they talk about it. They create a race, a referendum, a national event. Never heard of race for the prostate, have you? We got the same issues, but we don't talk about it. That's who we are. We don't communicate well. And that's what Tibbs failed to do well. He didn't communicate with his bosses. He didn't communicate with his players. The Bulls have averaged 33 minutes per game, the starters, since he took over. That's basically, along with Portland, number 1 in the league. In his sport, which is increasingly about the postseason, he breaks his guys down in the regular season, then they underachieve in the postseason. During Tibbs' tenure, the Bulls were awful in transition, despite having Derrick Rose, a great transitional player. They were 24th, 30th, 30th, 30th. Why? The players are worn out. Communicate with your bosses, with your players, with your stars. The world and the NBA has adapted. Okay, you can't. The NBA's never been more than just playoffs. That's what it is now. Stars get together because they want to be playing in May and June. Your guys are all broken down because you're playing them 42 minutes against Charlotte. So, yes, I mean, we can all defend the coach who we like, and he did a lot of stuff right. But again, listen to those key words again from his boss.
Communication, trust, culture, evolve, grow.
Yeah. Remember when, and it's one of these things, I don't know why it is with guys. Maybe they get successful and they don't want to adapt, they make some money and they're like, I know everything. I guess we're all guilty of that. But remember when Mike Krzyzewski was on? And I think Mike Krzyzewski is the best coach in the history of basketball, including Red Auerbach and including Phil Jackson. He's done it at the Olympic level. He's done it at the college level. He didn't like one-and-dones initially. He didn't like them. It's nothing against the kids, but he's like, I'm not going to do this one-and-done stuff. I have a program. I want 3- and 4-year guys. And Mike Krzyzewski adapted, okay? Remember when he came on my show and talked about how he adapted with one-and-dones?
The one-and-done rule comes in, but we haven't recruited that type of guy. So for a few years, we continued not to recruit him, but now we're playing against him.
That's right.
And I'm saying, let's not be idiots. There's got to be some kids out there who fit our profile, and then if they come for 1 year, that's fine. They might stay longer. But did they have the academics, the character, the basketball? Do they fit our profile? So it happened over a period of time. But I think the epiphany was going out on the court and saying, why aren't we recruiting that guy?
Adapted, communicated, talked to his assistants, talked to players, grew, talked to analysts. He listened to everybody and thought, let's just figure this out. I don't care if it's a war, it's a divorce, if it's getting you fired, communication's always an issue with guys. Tom Thibodeau wouldn't talk to his bosses for months during the season. Come on. Of course he's going to get axed. Discover the new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with new guacamole. Subway, eat fresh. By the way, I saw the spelling bee on last night. I'm not going to lie. I struggle with certain words like cinnamon. I have an issue when it comes to spelling. And I don't mind the spelling bee because it's competition. It's kind of fun. It's, it is what it is. We've had it forever and it's competition, right? So the staff this morning was asking me about some certain words. I'm not going to lie to you. If you have a word with like back-to-back consonants, I'm done. Tennessee, Cincinnati. Vince today was just riddling me with these words, and I don't think I can spell any of them. He's like, what about assassin? I'm like, give up, white flag. Cincinnati, no chance. What was the other one you guys came out with? Ambassador, done. So they want to play the spelling bee today, and I'm just going to acknowledge and own my baggage. You put 2 N's, 2 S's, 2 F's, 2 R's. It's the problem. It's not great. Not going to lie to you. When I was a little kid, we had to take 50 states and capitals, right? 50 states and capitals. And I got 49 out of 50. And I was just beside myself as like an 8-year-old. I remember going home and crying because I got a 49 out of 50. And you know which one I screwed up? Hawaii. Because there was 2 I's and I started concentrating on that and I forgot the A. Hawaii. But I was staring on those double I's and I'm like, get the 2 I's. And I forgot the A and I got a 49. It ruined my life. And I'd been to Hawaii. I'd seen the signs. So it's that spelling bee thing's pretty impressive to me.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I was having a really interesting talk the other day, and it was kind of a theoretical talk about, I'm not going to tell you who, but it was a very, very interesting talk. And we both agreed that in the history of the NBA, and I've been watching NBA basketball for 40 years. And, when you talk about the all-time great teams, the one thing nobody discusses is how many of the guys on those teams become coaches and successful entrepreneurs. We all look at the NBA as a talent league. It's really talent plus brains. I said this when the Miami Heat were winning titles with LeBron James. I said that was the smartest team I'd ever seen. Think about this. Bosh, super high IQ. Battier, Wade, LeBron, Mike Miller, Ray Allen, Haslam. That's 8 of the smartest 20 guys in the league. If you go to the Showtime Lakers, Byron Scott's now a head coach. Magic Johnson is one of the most influential business entrepreneurs in Los Angeles. Kareem, high IQ. Same with Worthy. Rambis, head coach. Michael Cooper, head coach. I mean, look at even the Shaq, Derek Fisher, Kobe Lakers. Look at all their business abilities outside the court. You go to the San Antonio Spurs. How many of those guys in their 2 dynasty runs have been coaches or analysts? Bruce Bowen, Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. We think it's all in the NBA. It's just about talent. No, it's not. Look at the Detroit Pistons, the bad boys. Look how many of those guys became GMs or coaches. That team was full of such smart guys. Lambier's a coach. Isaiah's been a coach and a GM. Joe Dumars. John Sally's been a broadcaster. Rodman was a kook, but there were so many guys that were so bright. That's why I'm very critical when it comes to quarterbacks and point guards, especially point guards in the NBA. Are you a smart guy? Kyrie Irving is really smart. Flawed, but smart. John Wall, talented. I don't think he's the smartest kid in the block. I think he's got poor judgment. And yesterday, what do you know? John Wall kicked off a plane in Vegas after somebody in his group threatened another passenger, and the pilot said, I'm not taking off. Get these clowns off the plane. Well, it's not John's fault. You are the company you keep. Smart guys hang out with smart guys. Funny people hang out with funny people. Libs with libs. Republicans, cute girls with cute girls, and dopes with dopes. Once again, John Wall, drip, drip, drip. Doesn't mean he's the devil. Doesn't mean Colin Kaepernick's the devil. Doesn't mean he doesn't have talent, but John Wall, college games, gang signs during games. The Dougie, stupid. Turnover machine, that's a judgment stat. Paul Pierce calling him out, needs to work harder. Thrown off a plane, hanging with dopes. Poor judgment, poor choices. You can look at his stats. His field goal percentage and his turnovers they tell you those are judgment statistics. Do you take good or bad shots? John Wall takes a lot of bad shots. Turnovers, poor judgment, a lot of turnovers. That's what he is. By the way, the problem is because he's so darn talented, we think he's a leader. And as Brad Doherty told us yesterday, it doesn't work that way.
Teams do that all the time. I mean, when you listen to teams talk, you listen to GMs talk, you listen to coaches talk, they expect the superstar to lead. But that's not necessarily true.
It's not. Just because you're the most talented doesn't mean you're the best leader. Rasheed Wallace is the most talented guy I've ever covered. It's not a leader. That Trailblazer team I covered, all sorts of great talent. No leaders. Didn't have a leader. Scottie Pippen in the end was not a great leader. He's great talent. And so this whole thing about John Wall, it's not the end of the world. I think John Wall's a great player. But all his pom-pom waving, cheerleader outfit wearing sycophant fanboys, they're like, you're wrong. John Wall has been in this league 5 years. 5 years. He has not won a second-round playoff series in the dog vomit Eastern Conference. And Paul Pierce now doesn't want to play with him. He's a hell of a talent. So's Colin Kaepernick. But it's like fanboy after fanboy. 5 years in this league. In the Eastern Conference. They're not even viable. The East is embarrassingly bad. I mean, the Cavs are all beat up. Varejao out, Love out, Kyrie hurt, flushed through the Hawks in 4 games. Can't win a second-round playoff game. Wouldn't even be a playoff team in the West. Not that John Wall's a bad guy. He's not a horrible human. He's a great player. He's probably gives to charity, but he's immature. And one of the things I've found, here's what's the funny thing about maturity. Guys who aren't mature can't spot immaturity. Like, immature guy doesn't see what immaturity is when he's doing it. So a lot of the immature guys, John Wall, you're wrong. John Wall is what John Wall is. Gang signs in games, pro in college, that dumb Dougie, doesn't always put the time in according to Paul Pierce, but he gets kicks off playing with his entourage. It's not that he's a bad guy. He's not a horrible human being. He just needs to grow up. You don't see John Stockton doing that and Magic Johnson involved with that. And for the record, you are the company you keep. They say that you are the average of your 5 best friends. So look around. If your 5 best friends are corrupt, you're corrupt. If your 5 best friends are smart, you're probably smart. If your 5 best friends are in great relationships and they're good dads, you probably value that. That's what's important to you. So if you hang around integrous people, likable people, you are your 5 best friends. So if you're hanging around guys, I'm 50 years old. None of my buddies get kicked off airplanes. Grow up. It just it's not the end of the world, but it shows a pattern of what he is. And I got into a discussion with somebody the other day, a power broker in the NBA. Not just a power broker in the NBA. I would say the second most powerful person in the NBA. Doesn't work for this network. Second most powerful person in the NBA. He may not even know he's that powerful. Let me say third. Adam Silver's 1, LeBron's 2. He's 3. And I mentioned John Wall. He just laughed. Said, great kid, but, championships, Stars don't want to play with him. But again, young people will defend him to the end. Go ahead. It's not the end of the world, but, what I find funny is most young people think it's all about just playing ball, man. It's not. It is about judgment, choices, who you surround yourself with. There's a reason guys want to play with LeBron. He's smart. He's a smart guy. Guys wanted to play with Magic. He's smart. You ever notice who Derek Fisher's buddies were? It's all the smart, great players in the league. You're going to see through John Wall, everybody thinks Durant's going to go play with him. No, he's not. He doesn't want to put his career in the hands of John Wall. No way. Not gonna. He's already got John Wall. It's Russell Westbrook. That's not working out. I mean, seriously, I'm not Westbrook's a huge talent, but I wouldn't build my franchise around Russell Westbrook either. All right, Corey. Corey, you got to be young. I don't know anybody 50 years old named Corey. How old are you?
Wow. You know what? You say you don't know anybody 50 years old named Corey, but I didn't ask to be named Corey. I was born and were you asked to be named Colin?
Actually, my mom was British, and it was an older name, so Colin would. There's a lot of older Collins, yeah. So let's get to the point with John Wall. Wave your pom-poms on John Wall. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't. I'm a 38-year-old. I'm a first sergeant in the world's greatest United States Air Force.
Okay.
And I deal with a plethora of different individuals,
yeah,
different platforms that they come from.
Yeah. And
when you look at the point that you're presenting, when you say that, okay, John Wall is this, and you told me to wave my pom-pom, so your mind is already made up. If my mind was made up,
his actions have created an interpretation, and that is why I have an opinion. Corey, if you were a lousy sergeant in the U.S. Marines or Air Force, and you had been in trouble 6 times, I would then form an opinion, an interpretation of Corey being an inefficient leader. But if you're a great leader, Corey, after 7 years, I'd say you can depend on Corey. Hangs around smart guys, is a smart guy, makes good choices. I will interpret your actions. I do not believe in fate, Corey. I don't believe in fate. It is your life. Make choices, good or bad. I will judge you always. Always. Okay. I'll judge you every day. I'm going to judge you the rest of your life, Corey, based on your life decisions. John Wall's made them, and I've made my decision. John Wall's immature.
Okay, and I'm going to base my decision on, whether I listen to certain talk shows.
All right, bye-bye. Take care. Find somebody else, Corey. You made your decision. Bye-bye. You were listening. You have that right. But you're offended that I am judging somebody based on actions. Deal with it. That's life. You're being judged now. And you can make a decision not to call my radio show again, but you were listening, and you do listen, and you will listen, and you know it's true. But you can choose, like many listeners do, come, go, get in the car, get out of the car. But don't deny you will be judged based on your decisions. John Wall chooses dopes, kicked off planes. That was John's decision. Magic's guys don't get kicked off planes. Stockton's guys don't. Tim Duncan's guys don't. Tony Parker guys don't. Manu's guys don't. LeBron's guys don't. D-Wade's guys don't. John Wall's do.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Tibbs got fired in Chicago. There's word that he did not communicate for 4 months with his general manager. Well, as I said, if you don't communicate with your wife for 4 months, you're probably getting a divorce. You got to do a better job of adapting and evolving and growing and communicating, and he didn't do a good job. He's a heck of a coach, but Brian Windhorst joining us. You've got more insight on this than I do. What's the tipping point? Was there a moment?
Well, how about that press release, Colin? Wow. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Now, that's not what I've been told. I've been told that that the Bulls front office and Tibbs were at least civil on a regular basis. Now, it depends on your definition of talk to. Does that mean saying hello, how are you, or does that mean breaking down game film and decisions? I don't know. But this was a very poorly kept secret. And the guy has been very successful. Generally speaking, he's been successful. He has coached opposite LeBron James and a juggernaut in Miami, and he's had injuries. And so the Bulls have not reached the top because LeBron has eliminated him 3 times in the 5 years he was coach. And I guess if you're held to that standard, it was not a success. But it had to be really, really bad for the Bulls to feel like they could fire a successful coach. Whenever you fire a successful coach, there has to be either a better coach waiting in the wings, which isn't necessarily assured here, or there's got to be absolutely irreconcilable differences. And I think that was the case. And the Bulls, even the Bulls' timing on this, picking it at a lull here at the end of the week, at a lull to try to downplay it a little bit. But, man, what a press release.
Yeah, they went after him. All right, we got into this story. This is sort of mathy. And nobody wants to hear Uncle Ronaldo, Colin, talk about algebra. But we were talking about this. Let's say the NBA cap is $60 million. You pay Dwayne Wade $12. He's 20% of the cap. If it goes up to $100 million, therefore, you could say, well, you could pay him $20. And that would be, again, like, whatever it is to the cap, the same percentage. I don't buy into that. I believe that when the cap goes up, I'm still not overpaying for people because I need to save my money to get the Durants and get the Westbrooks and get the LeBrons, and they may make $40 million a year. So I'm not going to overpay somebody based on the cap goes up. Now, that's a little mathy and convoluted, but in the end, D. Wade doesn't like what he's getting paid in Miami. I don't see him as a $20 million a year guy. Is he?
Right, so we have conflicting leverage here, Colin. No, I don't think he's a $20 million player. But he's taken pay cuts in each of his last 2 contracts to help the Heat out, to help them sign LeBron and Wade, and in this last offseason to sign Luol Deng. So the issue is the Heat need him really badly from a perception standpoint. He started this whole Heat Lifer campaign, which was sort of like an anti-LeBron campaign. When he re-signed, he said he was a Heat Lifer. Then the team jumped on it and called all their players Heat Lifers. And so he's extraordinarily important to the team from a marketing and a legacy and treat your people well standpoint. So they are Wade has some leverage there. They can't let Dwayne Wade leave, but no other team would even pay him $16 million next year, much less 20. So the Heat have the leverage by saying, well, where are you going to go? What are you going to get? So we have conflicting leverage here. So Dwayne is playing his cards. He's, it's pretty clear he's making it public that the contract negotiations are an impasse, and he wants public pressure to come down on the Heat. This is an odd situation because one of the things that the Heat do is talk about taking care of their own and talk about how long they have standing. But Pat Riley and Mickey Arison have always been businessmen first. Don't forget that even though Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway's jerseys hang in the arena, Alonzo Mourning at one point had to leave the team. Now Alonzo had his reasons for doing that, but ultimately they were not offering him the same amount of money that the New Jersey Nets were offering him at the time. And at the end of his career, Tim Hardaway left the team and went to the Mavericks. And both times, both decisions were good decisions. And so does Pat Riley have it with him again to play hardball here?
Yeah. Bill Belichick and Pat Riley run their organizations mostly the same way. We're not overpaying for old popular veterans. LeBron's efficiency, I read a story this morning, people are like, man, his efficiency's into the tank. But I would argue it's into the tank because he's asked to do more, and anytime you ask somebody who's talented to do more, they're stretched thin. I think I didn't think he shot well against the Bulls, but what have you seen from LeBron in this playoff run?
Yeah, from an efficiency standpoint, he's way behind where he's been the last 4 years. But from a leadership standpoint, he's never been higher. The mastery that he had over the Atlanta Hawks, there were times, Colin, where I felt like LeBron was controlling the other 9 players on the floor. He had such a control and command over the way the game was being played and a confidence level. We've rarely seen athletes rise to that level of dominance. And, yeah, he wasn't as efficient, but there's no way he wasn't the difference maker. So he's figuring out a different way to win. The Cavs are going to need more offense if they have a chance to beat the Warriors, and that means that they're going to need LeBron to be more efficient. But if you have a problem with the way LeBron played against the Hawks, you're just looking for something to criticize. I just talked to a really good source over the weekend. He said Kevin Love to the Lakers or any other team outside of Chicago's 50-50, that players can't get a read on Kevin Love's personality. 30 seconds. Any inside juice on that? Nobody can. Here's the situation with Kevin Love. The Cavs are going to offer him a 5-year, $100 million contract. and he's got a bad shoulder, a bad back, and a bad knee, and he's going to have to say no to that. And if he does say no, the Cavs now know they can survive. 6 months ago, the idea of Kevin Love walking away for nothing would have been devastating, but they've gotten to the finals without him. They want him back, but they can survive if he leaves.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
Cuba is officially removed from the state sponsors of terrorism list. So we're boys with Cuba now, officially. That's a big deal for business. Yeah. John Kerry signed an order today removing Cuba from the U.S. terrorism blacklist as part of the process of kind of westernizing and normalizing relations between these former foes. I think it's great. We got into it's not worth radio topic, but if I did like a different genre of radio, I'd spend all day on this. I think it's fascinating. I think the Cuba relationship with our country is amazing. I really do. Good stuff. I got a bunch of stuff today. I have a lot of energy today. I don't know why. I slept great. That's probably it. Nice weather. We've had I almost had a pollen seizure about 2 days ago. It was just awful. I don't have allergies, and I've always felt bad for people who have allergies, but it was so bad here for about 2 weeks. I was coughing and hacking, and today we got clear skies. Went for a jog at 6 in the morning around a reservoir. It's unbelievable. Like a movie set. So DeMaurice Smith is the NFL Player Association dude. He's a good guy, smart guy. He said, Ray Rice is being blackballed. Really? Is Mel Gibson in Hollywood being blackballed? Or did he make slurs against a powerful ethnic group in Hollywood? Kathleen Heigl is a nightmare in Hollywood to deal with. Major drama. Kathleen Heigl's not being blackballed. People don't want to work with a drama queen. You know, if you're tough on directors and actors, you're not going to get jobs in Hollywood. That's not being blackballed. It's that word travels, especially now with social media, LinkedIn, Facebook. Word travels. It's called a phone. Kathleen Heigl's toxic, high maintenance, word gets out. That's not blackballing. Ray Rice, you don't need meetings and covert operations to understand why Ray Rice is not getting gigs. One, he's the face of domestic violence in the NFL, fair or not. And two, his talent has somewhat eroded. So playing pro sports isn't a right, it's a privilege, and Ray Rice blew it. This idea that Hollywood studios that compete against each other, they get on the phone, all these CEOs, don't hire Mel Gibson. You don't have to announce something to know something. You don't have to have a meeting to understand something. I mean, Ray Rice is the face of domestic violence right now in the NFL. It's a toxic environment. Nobody wants to get those kind of players. You know, I mean, Greg Hardy, I was surprised, got a gig with the Cowboys. Ray Rice is the face of it, and he's got limited skills at this point. He's not getting a gig. I don't think that's blackballing. Now, DeMaurice Smith says, well, it's easy to see. It's happening.
This, unfortunately, is a league that has a history of blackballing players. We talked today about a player named Bill Radovich, who was blackballed in the 1940s. I find it hard to believe that a player of Mr. Rice's caliber hasn't at least got one offer from a team to come work out.
By the way, Richie Incognito is still a very good guard. People didn't want to touch him. Did you have to have meetings around the league? I mean, a lot of times conspiracy theorists who I make fun of, you don't have to have meetings not to hire a guy. I mean, when Charlie Sheen was going through that winning thing, nobody wanted to hire him. Why? Because they read Variety magazine? They read The Hollywood Reporter? You don't have to have meetings to figure out don't touch. When Lindsay Lohan was going sideways, did Sony and Paramount and Pixar and Disney have to have meetings? She was high maintenance. And now with TMZ.com and all the social media, sometimes people out themselves. The other thing we got to do this morning is hate is a very powerful thing. It's really an unbelievable thing. And I don't think, you think hate is a bad thing, but hate can be a powerful thing, and it's not always the worst thing in the world. LeBron James, the hate remains strong on LeBron James. He has a very large percentage of people that hate him. And I strongly believe that hate among fans is actually an ally. as because we want people to evolve, right? But what creates great art, and sports can be art, is that drive. And that drive often comes from tough childhoods. Very few rich kids become pro athletes. It is mostly lower middle class and below that often become stars. You know, we've said this before about rappers. Their first album, I Was Poor, Here's My Struggle. Awesome. It's their best art. Their second album is I Got Rich, Here's What I Own. Not as good. Their third album is, all right, I've talked about my struggle and what I own. Now I want to go deep and talk about the thoughts of my life. Flops. The truth is they can never recreate that mountain. LeBron James had a mountain. He climbed it. He won 2 titles. When he went to Cleveland, that was a genius move. It creates the next mountain to climb. It's very difficult when you get rich and powerful and have rings to keep the drive. It's very, very tough. We've seen it. We've seen it with music. We've seen it with art. We've seen it with actors. We see it with comedians. You got about a 6-year window to be the funniest person in America. Then you get a 3rd home and a 9th Lexus. You're not funny anymore. Eddie Murphy was funny. Then he got cool and rich. Now he's not funny. You know, it was Mike Myers. I mean, it literally, you get Jim Carrey, Mike Myers. Then they make $20 million a movie, and they're not as funny. Because what made them funny was eating macaroni and cheese with their 6 roommates. Funny is too few rooms in Yonkers with 9 kids. That's struggle. That's when you have to be close. That funny isn't Bel Air. That's obnoxious. That's why I've always said New York's funnier than Los Angeles. New York, you live through 5 months of horrible weather. Even rich people have to wait in line. Los Angeles is so big and spread out, you can go live in Malibu on the Point, you never see anybody. New Yorkers, they got to go to work every day. In L.A., you make 1 movie a year. That's obnoxious. That's smug. Like, cold weather climates are funnier than Phoenix. Canada gives us funny people. Seattle, Boston, New York, Minneapolis, historically, give us very funny people. When's the last time you were like, that comedian? He is from San Diego. Not a lot of struggles when it's 64 degrees and you can go out and walk on the beach. You may move to San Diego, but then you just get less funny. So I think the haters actually fuel the fire with LeBron James. And I'm reading a stat here that, you know, he's putting up all these numbers. He remains hated by a lot of people. And I think it drives him. I really do. I think once in a while, a director or an actor has to have a bomb. Like, you don't want to do too many great movies in a row. You need to have critics who say, you know, you kind of lost your fastball. It ticks you off and you work harder. Because once you get successful in the mansion, the place in the Hamptons, what's driving you now? That's why trust fund kids. How many trust fund kids create unbelievable digital applications in Silicon Valley? I mean, seriously. A lot of those are middle-class kids. Trust fund kids, they're rich. How many create new, amazing things? Not many. They take their dad's business, but how many create their own territory? Not many. 92% of American millionaires, middle class below. They're not rich. 8% of people inherit their wealth. That's a myth.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
throw to the plate, safe at the plate,
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
So, this is a little mathy, but we got into this discussion earlier, and it makes me sound like a really bad guy, but that can be funny sometimes, so I'll say it anyway. So, and again, this is kind of complicated, so I'm going to simplify it as much as I can. Dwayne Wade is in the middle of negotiations with the Miami Heat, and he'll probably re-sign. It's called negotiations, okay? but the salary cap's like $60 million. Let's say D. Wade wants 12. That's 20% of the cap. Now the salary cap's going up to $100 million, and Stanzik argues I have to pay him $20 million because that's still 20% of the cap, and we disagree on business here. I want a businessman to call my show on this. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, because the idea that now that my salary cap is greater, that I have to give everybody a raise to give them the same percentage of the salary is absurd to me. I'm not going to give D. Wade any more regardless of salary cap because I want to save my money for Kevin Durant, and he's going to cost me $40 large a year. So just because my company makes more profits, I'm not going to pay non-A players A money, regardless of my salary cap extension or salary cap growth. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. How much, by the way, Jalen Rose, how much, you're a GM of a team, and I know D. Wade's popular, but on most nights now, he's not a dominating player. I look at him as a B-plus player now with occasional A nights. How do you view D. Wade?
Good day, Colin. You know I love this show.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
A couple of things. In life, we never get what we deserve, only what we have the leverage to negotiate. So for Dwayne Wade, it's not about what he's going to do for the 82 games during the regular season and what's going to happen in the postseason only. There's a value there for a guy that's played his entire career there, has won 3 championships, will help recruit LeBron James there. The organization benefited from that. And you want D. Wade to retire a Miami Heat player. That creates recruiting value, fan value, amongst the things that happen on the basketball court. So there's truly no dollar figure for what Dwayne Wade's going to bring to Miami Heat. Oh, and by the way, if you lose him, you're not going to get the Kevin Durant type of player now. You may lose your point guard now that's a free agent. So you want to keep D. Wade in the fold, I think Miami finds a way to get it done.
Wow, that was pretty interesting economics class from Jalen Rose. You almost make me feel guilty for, not supporting D. Wade. That made a lot of sense there. Now, Tibbs got fired, and it would be easy for me to support Tibbs because he won a lot of games. But he didn't talk to his GM for 4 months, and that Chicago Bulls roster is now every year beat up in the playoffs because he's playing guys 42 minutes against Charlotte. I kind of take the tack that he didn't communicate with his bosses. He didn't adapt and grow to the current NBA climate. He plays players too long in meaningless games. That's how I see it. You're a former player. How do you think players see it?
The relationship just had an expiration date. That's all. Both sides knew that in another 2 seasons, an extension was not coming. So once that's out there for media consumption, I was a person that's been talking about this being Tibbs last year for the entire season. Now, how does that become public? Both sides have sources. They leak things about the other. But at the end of the day, it's about winning basketball games. He's been a really successful coach on the sideline. And never underestimate the hardest thing to do in the NBA is develop players. Derrick Rose, the youngest MVP that the game has seen. Jimmy Butler is now an all-star. People felt Pau Gasol was done when he was with the Lakers. More points, more rebounds, and was an all-star this year. Noah was all NBA last year. So he's going to get another job. He's going to land on his feet. We know the Bulls organization is going to go on. I just call it a split between both sides, and both are going to be better for it.
We all know there's a love-hate relationship with LeBron among fans. Take me into your cell phone. When are your guys that you've played with, are they pro-LeBron? Are your buddies that played in the league, are they like fans? Are they split on LeBron, or do they love him?
LeBron has the number one spot right now because just like your Dwayne Wade conversation, people also forget that LeBron James is a brand endorser. He's on every other commercial. He also basically is a right-hand friends with a management scenario where he's not only being a terrific player, but think about it. His childhood friend also represents Tristan Thompson, for example, Rich Paul, and Tristan Thompson plays for the team, and he's about to get a max deal. LeBron just came out and said, well, I don't see why Tristan can't be a Cavs for life. So people respect LeBron beyond the 4 MVPs and the 2 championships. He's a businessman also. but also he's unselfish. When he went to Miami, a lot of people say, oh, he lost the right to be Michael Jordan, or now he's settling to be Scottie Pippen. Who's Batman or who's Robin? No, LeBron James understands how to maximize the moment. I'm going to win MVPs in Cleveland. I'm going to win scoring titles in Cleveland, but everybody's going to point to me not having championships. So what did he do? He went to Miami, to the puppet master, Pat Riley. I'm going to take that off the table. So people respect that LeBron is not only a businessman, but a really unselfish and terrific player. And this season, when you thought it was going to be a big three, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, LeBron James has got reverse lottery picks, as I call them. Timothy Mozgov, Shumpert, J.R. Smith, now in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, Jalen Rose joining us. It's kind of interesting, Jalen. Nobody gives Cleveland a shot. And I've said if Kyrie Irving's healthy, I think it's a really good long series. What am I missing?
But that's a big if, Colin, because he missed 3 of the 4 previous games, and he's going against the reigning MVP, Steph Curry, in the next round. That's the question mark. The second-best players on both teams, second-best players on both teams are dealing with health concerns. On one side, you have Klay Thompson, who was bleeding out of his ear, and I love the detail that we got from his dad, Michael Thompson. You only get that detail when it's a parent, plus the parent has a forum like he does with ESPN. I love that level of detail about Klay throwing up and him having to drive him home. So he's dealing with that. And then Kyrie's dealing with the knee issue. So which one of those guys are going to be close to 100% as we know them? And also the power forward spot. It's a dichotomy in how the league's played. You got a playmaking four in Draymond Green, who's 6'7", that plays bigger, and that can make 3-point shots. Then you have Tristan Thompson, who's just an animal on the boards. You need a taser to keep that guy off the boards. He just decided 2 years ago while he was in the NBA whether he wanted to shoot left-handed or right-handed. So it's going to be a really exciting series. I don't think anybody can sway either way who's a heavily favored or who's a heavy underdog. But I will say this. You can't bet against LeBron James.
See, now, again, look at Stanzik's going, again, I have LeBron. I like Mozgov, Tristan Thompson inside. And by the way, LeBron's been here and Golden State hasn't. I think it's going to be a very compelling series. Now, my first hour of the show, this is kind of off topic, but the first hour of the show, everybody knows that I think John Wall's a great talent. I just think he's immature and needs to grow up. And that's been stated over and over. And I didn't want to destroy him today, but he and a bunch of buddies got kicked off an airplane for, being silly, and that's not very smart. You are the company you keep. And without going into further detail on John Wall, because I pick on him enough, have you ever been kicked off a plane? Because I'm a big believer in you are the company you keep, and sometimes in life you got to get rid of friends. I mean, you're a star, Jalen Rose. When you walk around town, people want your autograph. You're going to be judged by your 5 guys who you hang with. Did you ever get kicked off a plane? Did you ever get in a situation where you had to cut a buddy loose and say, dude, you're bad karma, you're bad PR, I got to cut you loose?
I've never been kicked off a plane, but all of us in life, at some point, there are people that are like-minded and help you achieve your goals, and then there are people that become a hindrance. I say this all of the time. People come into your life for 4 reasons: to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And as a professional athlete, as a public figure, you also can't live your life in a bubble. And here's what I mean. Just because I'm on an airplane, whether I'm with one person or 5 people, that means that even when I encounter strangers, there should be a level of respect there. So we don't know why there was a disagreement. Maybe the person that was not with John Wall was creating a disturbance, and somebody in John Wall's camp came to the defense of themselves and or directly or indirectly to John. We don't know that. So a lot of times you can't just say how you will behave, because you got to respect and or acknowledge the disrespect you may be getting from somebody else. But I agree with the premise of being with like-minded people to help put you in a position to continue to be successful.
So you had to cut, and let's be honest about this. A lot of times in the African-American culture, when a lot of NBA players, specifically in that sport, grow up, and you're a great example of this, there's a struggle early in life, and then all of a sudden you get some wealth, and there can be people that, hey, I want to hang with Jalen Rose. I don't know if it's the difference in all ethnic communities, but there is that struggle, right? I've heard this before. Players talk about it. It is different in the African American community.
It's not necessarily black or white. It's green, and money is the root of all evil. And what has happened in today's society now, stupid is the new cool, and things have been dumbed down with emojis, with abbreviations, with how we communicate with one another, how we articulate ourselves. To when I grew up watching TV, daytime TV, it was the soaps. At least you had a plot. At least you had actors and actresses. Now it's reality TV. What can I do to be seen? What can I do to be heard? So society is different. Social media has helped play a role in that as well. But when you're focused on your dreams and on your goals, you can't be denied, and you can't allow, obviously, somebody to come into your circle and hinder what you hope to get accomplished.
Always smart, always thoughtful. Jalen Rose, good talking to you, but have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for having me on.
Jalen Rose, always thoughtful.
Colin Cowherd. The Thundering Herd Podcast.
You know, it's really interesting it's very mathy, but if your salary cap is $60 million and you pay D Wade, let's say 15, and he's 25%, just because your salary cap goes up, why should I pay him more to be the same percentage of my salary cap? To me, players are sort of like goods. They're commodities. You pay them what you think they are worth. Just because my profits go up, why do I have to pay them more? Let's just use, this company. Let's say, Disney. Disney makes movies. And let's say Disney has 5 straight hit movies, which, frankly, we have. And then they go up. Does Disney have to give because now their profits are greater, do they have to give every employee double the money? No, you may give your best employees more because they have leverage and they could leave your company, but you're not going to I don't believe you have to give double the income to every employee because your profits are up. I don't understand that. To me, I would save money because I'm going to have to pay $45 if I want to get Kevin Durant. The real winner in this extension, in this growth of the salary cap, is the star player. I mean, LeBron's worth $50 million if the NBA would allow it. Jeff, you're in the herd. You're a businessman, right? Jeff, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, you're a businessman. My belief is because my profits go up, why do I have to pay D Wade more if I think he's a B-plus player now in his career? You're a businessman. Explain your business and your philosophy.
Okay, I'm in the automobile business, and I'm a wholesale buyer of used cars for dealers. I have several clients that are new car dealers, and I buy used cars at auctions and in various sources, or from various sources for them. If I get lucky, and a blind pig finds an acorn once in a while, and I buy a car $1,000 back of the money, that dealer puts it on his lot, and the retail value is the retail value. He makes more profit. I don't get more money because I have shown my value to his company. I keep the account.
So largely what you're saying is commodities are commodities. Once your transaction's done, you're out of it. You created value for yourself, but you don't get more based on the total retail price of the car sold later.
That's correct. And he has a reserve for those times that I actually overpay for a vehicle, but he still has to retail out of that car at less profit.
And the cost of your services don't go up based on gross profit?
Correct.
Okay. So
the cost of my service is flat rate. I negotiate per diem, and I negotiate per unit up front, and it doesn't change unless I change it every couple of years and raise my prices. But I don't do it based on that. I do it based on my value to that company.
Okay, so Jeff, thank you for the call. Now, remember, you can have NFL Player Association. Unions are different, union representation. You can sometimes be a consultant, not a full-time employee, But I think what I'm saying is I just don't think because I have such a great salary cap and it's extended or it rises, suddenly I've got to pay a D player B money. You are what you are. I'm taking those profits and holding them and getting into bidding wars to get LeBron, Durant, and Westbrook, or Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, or whoever. I don't know. Maybe an NBA guy will call me and tell me I'm a moron. But I'm not. I just don't feel like, my salary cap went up. Now I got to pay Rudy Gay $20 million. I'm not paying Rudy Gay $20 million if my salary cap's $400 million. Rudy Gay equals L's, not W's. Eric in L.A. What up, Eric?
Hey, Colin, I want to talk to you regarding Tom Thibodeau. You made the point that communication is one of the big things he was lacking. If I'm the Clippers, Doc Rivers, I'm calling Tom Thibodeau up, telling Steve Ballmer to open up the checkbook and get that guy on board, because the difference between the Clippers closing out the Spurs in 5 and sweeping Houston was their lack of boxing out, running off the three-point line, all the defensive things.
Yeah.
I really think, too, I think you have too many good cops on the Clippers bench, and I think Thibodeau will kind of play that disciplinarian, the bad cop, and kind of even them out.
Yeah, I think I think that sounds really good, Eric. It's like, hey, we're not good on defense. Let's hire a defensive coach, but then your offense won't be as good. And you also have a veteran roster with the Clippers. Paul Pierce now wants to be a member. Those veterans don't want to play 44 minutes. And it should be noted that you really came down to one quarter away from being in the Western Conference Finals. So let's not Eric bury Doc Rivers yet. I think Tibbs sounds like, it's a prime example in the NFL. If your defense is bad, hire a Ryan brother. Yeah, but then your offense gets worse. So I don't think Tibbs is the answer to the LA Clippers issues. They'll be worse offensively. It sounds like it works. I'm bad at this. I'll hire a guy that's good at this. But what if he has deficiencies? And clearly Tibbs has some deficiencies offensively where he grinds players into the ground. All right, here's a guy that wants to pay all these stars mega money. Jalen, you're in the herd. Jalen, go ahead.
I don't want to pay all the stars mega money. I just think Dwayne Wade should get the mega money from the Heat because he's their greatest player. It's like Kobe. Kobe's not worth what he's making, right now. But hey, he gave him 5 rings. So hey, Dwayne Wade's giving him.
By the way,
Jalen, 3 rings.
By the way, Dwayne Wade was your greatest player. When he isn't your greatest player, I'm not paying him the money. By the way, Kobe got you 5 rings, and you paid him a fortune while he won you 5 rings. Why do I have to pay in perpetuity? Why do I have to pay these guys max money?
He's going to have a statue in front of that building in Miami.
Who gives a rip about statues? Birds poop on statues. Who cares about statues? Nobody cares about statues. Birds fly over them, land on them, and poop on statues. I'm paying a guy max money because they're going to build a statue for him?
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
It's really funny. Psychologists say that people hate for the same reasons. Everybody hates for the same reasons. You hate what you want but can't attain. You generally hate what you fear. You hate what you want to be but can't. And you hate people who say and do things you can't. That's why you hate people. You hate the powerful. But I've always found people like the Kardashians. Everybody's like, I hate the Kardashians. But everybody plays the Powerball so they could get rich and live the life the Kardashians do, with butlers, mansions, private jets, and swimming pools. But they hate the Kardashians the way they live. But yet if you won the Powerball lottery, you'd buy a bunch of watches and clothes and mansions and pools. Ooh, they're superficial. LA's superficial. You do realize LA's 50% transient, meaning those people are from Cleveland and Chicago and Minnesota. In St. Louis. They just happen to be the best-looking person in every high school in Chicago, Cleveland, Minneapolis, and St. Louis. So people can be very hypocrites. Like everybody's like, oh, the rich should pay taxes. Then you get rich and don't want to pay taxes. I find this, people hate LeBron, and a lot of the things they hate about LeBron, they just fear. He's better than you and your team, and you hate that. He's going to get titles that your team can't attain. He can do things you can't. He has power and leverage. So, we're all hypocrites from time to time. Like, everybody always blasts the Kardashians. It's been on the air for like a decade. They're doing something right. You keep watching. It's like porn. No, porn's bad. Why does it make $9 billion a year? It does. Porn's bad. Really? Somebody's watching it. Probably you. Kardashians are terrible. Why is it still on the air? It's getting ratings. A lot of people are watching it. Dumb people watch it. I've said this about the Kardashians. The brilliance of that show, and again, the critics are so emotional about it they can't see straight. The brilliance of the Kardashian show, it's women empowerment. If you watch 2 episodes of that show, it's women saving men from alcoholism, helping men as they move into a transgender phase. It's helping men with their weight. Lamar Odom, Rob, Scott, the father. It's the empowerment of women. And we very rarely in American society have television shows where women are in control and women have power. That's why the Kardashian ratings, it's a lot of women watch that show. I mean, my wife's not dumb, and she'll watch it for business practices. She's like, they do something here. It's pretty clever. If you step back from it, that's what the show is. It's the empowerment of women. That's the genius of the show that Ryan Seacrest, and I don't even know Ryan Seacrest, and I'd love to have him on to talk about the business, because I think the genius of it is it's strong women. And I think that's great for American society and great for American television. They're constantly solving problems with men who are dysfunctional or men who are going through tough times. 30% of all internet bandwidth, 30% is taken up by porn. 6 times higher than the next closest sector. But nobody believes in porn or watches it, right? All right. Okay. Thanks, Vince, for that stat. That was a very good pornography stat on the air. Had no idea about that bandwidth thing. Hey, how's your bandwidth? Luke, you're in the herd. Go ahead. Thanks for calling.
Hi, yeah, I'm calling. Love your show, by the way.
Thanks.
I'm calling about questioning LeBron's leadership. I don't see it as leadership. I see it as a weakness. He seems to never be able to do it on his own. He has to always.
Who could do it on their own?
Recruit players.
Well, who could do it on their own? Name a player that did it on his own.
Jordan. Who did he recruit?
First of all, Michael Jordan's teams had Hall of Famers on them. Phil Jackson, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen. He had the best shooter. Tony Kukoc was the best. Luke, the teams that Jordan played on were so good that when he left, they won 2 fewer games.
What I'm saying is LeBron couldn't do it at Cleveland at first. He had to go join Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and get it all together.
Yes, and Michael Jordan couldn't do it before Pippen and Phil Jackson and Rodman.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, maybe the Jordan comparison wasn't the greatest. But what I'm saying is then he goes back to Cleveland and he's got to get J.R. Smith and Shumpert and Kevin Love.
By the way, again, and Jordan pushed for players to join the Bulls, Luke. This is outrageous. By the way, when you're looking for you're trying to date a good-looking woman, you're recruiting, right? You're using all your assets. I worked out today. I make good money. I drive a nice car. What is wrong with recruiting people and selling yourself? Nothing. That's not a negative. Why is it a negative that LeBron is smart enough to acknowledge I need help? I can't win alone. That's not a negative. It shows how smart he is. The dopes are Carmelo Anthony, who thinks I'm so great I don't need anybody. He's the dope. The smart players, by the way, Dwayne Wade also recruited LeBron James. That's why Dwayne's one of the smarter guys in the league. The dumb guys think Derrick Rose won't get on a phone and call LeBron. D. Wade got on a phone and called LeBron. Kyrie Irving gets on a phone and befriends LeBron. The smart guys get it. It's not a weakness. It's a strength. If I'm a director for a movie, is it a weakness if I have Tom Hanks and Tom Hanks says, hey, Steve Buscemi, Ed Norton, come in this movie? Is that a weakness? Tom Hanks now is weak because he wants to work with other people? No, he's secure that he has the strength and the confidence to work with other people. If a director seeks the best producer and the best actors, is it a weakness? It's a strength. If I run Goldman Sachs or Apple and I go hire the best engineers realizing I'm up against all these other great companies, it's not a weakness, it's a strength.
2 skiffs approaching with armed intruders.
I can't believe that didn't get an Oscar nomination. I am still bitter. Brian Windhorst told us earlier, this has been LeBron's best year as a leader.
From a leadership standpoint, he's never been higher. The mastery that he had over the Atlanta Hawks, there were times, Colin, where I felt like LeBron was controlling the other 9 players on the floor. He had such a control and command over the way the game was being played and a confidence level. We've rarely seen athletes rise to that level of dominance.
And by the way, I don't care that it's Carmelo Anthony's birthday. I just called him a dope on his birthday. And I feel great about it. I really do. Happy birthday, Melo. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. You play defense like your shoes are made of glue. Happy birthday, dear Melo. And something that rhymes with mellow to end the stupid birthday rhyme. Hey, how about I give you this for a present? I'll wrap a big box of self-awareness. I'm a jerk.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast. Miguel Cabrera leads the Detroit Tigers into Anaheim to face Mike Trout and the Los Angeles Angels. The pregame's at 7 Eastern, followed by first pitch at 8. Sunday on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.